not miss this episode of SheWhat with women's health expert Meghan Rabbitt. Meghan debunks centuries-old misconceptions, and we get a little education on how to love living in our bodies. So stick around. Meghan Rabbitt, welcome to SheWhat!
Thank you. I'm super happy to be here.
I've never been more happy. Megs has always been that best friend for me who is so super smart. I can talk to about like body stuff, sex stuff, career stuff, all that good stuff. And the exciting thing about this book that you just wrote is that now we all get to have Meg as our bestie to help us through some of the body issues that we didn't know we needed to know. So thank you.
So exciting. I mean, Meg, this book was a massive undertaking. I mean, daunting topics like puberty. I love right off the bat that you call it a major transition because so many things in women's bodies we sweep under the rug and we're like, oh, puberty, menopause, like it's nothing. And I love that even you use the word major because these are major things, but in so many ways. But how did you get to be the one to write this book?
Yeah, I feel lucky. I feel like I was given this project. I work for Maria Shriver, and she, over a salad in her LA office, said, "I want you to write a book. I want it to be a women's health manifesto, and I think you should write it." Wow! And so I am mid salad bite, and like my eyes get big, and I'm like, "Oh, okay, Maria Shriver." So yes, I had the great privilege of being commissioned to write this book, actually. So that's how it came to be. And I think because of that, Maria is such a force. She's such a journalist to be respected and admired. And I think that because she wanted me to do this, I said, okay, I've got to hold this project like it's my baby that I'm raising for 3 years. And so I really took that attitude and went to town on the reporting and went deep into the writing cave to take all of the reporting and then really try to bring women what we most need to know about our bodies, about our health, so that we can feel like we have the education we need to advocate for ourselves. So that's the genesis for this book. And then it was a massive undertaking. You are right, Maureen.
So the Maria Shriver of it all aside, you are selling yourself a little bit short because you did have like decades in the making of, becoming a women's health writer, becoming that expert, talking to a million experts, to talk about that.
Right after graduating from college, I went to New York City. I couldn't get a job in magazines, which was my passion. And so I got a job as an intern for Rudy Giuliani's Office of Operations. And sure enough, as baby Meghan, fresh out of college, I found myself on the New York City Rat Task Force. So it all started with me on as like intern Meghan Rabbitt on the Rat Task Force in New York City. And honestly, I feel like I might have blocked a lot of it. What the Rat Task Force does is really try to keep the rats away from the people, So I was an intern. I did not play a big role.
I did not know that you did this, Meghan.
I did not know this either.
That's where it all started, ladies. And then, thankfully, I got a job at Parenting Magazine, which was part of Time Inc. at the time, and just kind of worked my way up through the ranks of magazines, print magazines. Back in the heyday, I started my career in 2001, and I always found myself gravitating towards, but also getting put on the health beat. And so I really have spent the last 25 years of my career really focused on women's health. I've always worked for women's magazines. And so I've always found myself reporting and writing on these women's health topics.
Well, we all have that beat in common. We worked on magazines. I was at Condé Nast with Bon Appetit, and Jess, you were with Rodale, right?
I worked at Maxim, my first job.
Maxim, that was the first one.
As one does.
Right, of course.
With the men's mags.
Yes.
Yeah.
How far we've come, my goodness, from the Rat Task Force days. But Meg, now it feels like women's health is really having a moment.
I was just going to say that.
Thank God.
And menopause being one that is just constantly in the news now. It just feels like something we talk about regularly. And that is a big part of your book also. I think all the parts are big, maybe we should say. I've had just a few moments to really dig into the book, and I'm so excited already because I'm a Catholic schoolgirl, and so I legit know nothing about my body, and I felt so excited when I was flipping the pages because I was like, oh my God, that what? Like even the pictures, I just felt like I was being empowered with so much knowledge. Like, how did you dig into women's health? Like, where's the starting point?
Yeah, it's I'm so grateful you said that, because I think that even those of us who are super highly educated and read a ton and just are, upstanding citizens, and we want to learn more, and we're curious, and still even we just didn't get the education about our bodies and our health that we deserved. Hopefully we're doing better for our young ones now, but I have suspicions around that. And so yeah, like that was what part of my mission was on this book, right? Is to say, okay, health news and information changes all the time. It's the nature of research. It should change if we're doing the research, right? And so this book isn't filled with like the latest studies. It's really it's that my aim was to give people a baseline knowledge of our bodies so that we feel even more confident about trusting ourselves when it comes to symptoms that may come up, trusting the stories we tell about our bodies and our health, not only to our friends, but also certainly to our doctors, to our healthcare practitioners, so that we believe ourselves first and foremost, and then we get believed. And if we aren't believed when we talk about our symptoms, our health, then we find a new doctor. So it really is meant to be, it sounds like empowering, and I do think we're at an amazing moment where we are talking about, certainly I can't go to a party or even a coffee with a couple girlfriends at my age, at age 46, without talking about menopause. And I think that's a great thing. I'm here for it. It's like my mother's generation, she's in her early 70s. They would never talk about these things. Even my mom now, beautifully so, she'll talk to me about, I'll ask her, of course, like, what was menopause like for you? And she'll be like, I was pretty lucky. A couple times I felt a little blue. It's like they have.
Oh, is that what you call it? Blue? Yeah.
That's also just my sweet mother, but I do think, her generation had this way of, it's not whitewashing, but it was sort of just tamping down the realness of it. And I think part of the beauty of this moment in women's health we're having right now, where we're talking about it, is we're not sugarcoating it as much. We're being more real about it and authentic. And that's such a great thing.
Well, sugarcoating was sort of just what we did generally. Like, I might have told you both the story already, but with apologies to my cousin Eric, we weren't allowed to say the word tampon around him. He would like cry and run in the other room. And so I feel like even with my upbringing, which was, pretty feminist forward, that was like just a thing. We weren't allowed to talk about all that kind of stuff. It was like the icky stuff or whatever.
Yeah. I feel like we're doing a better job now with our boys, Jess, that we are making things normal or normalizing it. Like a same thing, when we got our periods in grade school, and I got my period when I was 11, that's really young. Like we would hide our pad in our sleeve of our sweater. I went to Catholic school. We would hide it in there to try to go to the bathroom. Like no one could know this was happening to you. Like it was like from the jump a stigma, and menopause was a stigma. It was like, oh, you can't have kids anymore. You're old. You're dried up. Like, but I went through menopause in my early 40s. Like, and for years I went to doctors saying all this was happening to me, and they weren't believing me, Meg. So just like you said, they weren't believing me. And I was saying, this is happening. They're saying, you're too young. Finally, I switched doctors. I went in bawling, crying to this woman. I mean, I was a hot mess. Like I cried for like a year, and I went into this new doctor, and it was a woman. And I said to her, this is what's happening to me. And she's like, you're in menopause. And I'm like, I know. I've been saying that. I was like, thank you so much for hearing me and listening to me. And she's like, I don't usually do this without a full exam, but I'm going to put you on some hormone replacement therapy right away. And so we did that. I went back the next week, got my full exam, because I basically snuck into that appointment. And then I went back just a couple weeks later of being on hormone replacement therapy, and I had felt so normal and good and in control.
Are we still calling it hormone replacement therapy?
That's such a good question. So this was a really big aha that I've talked to Jess about, because we talk about all the things. But actually, a big surprise for me, one of them in writing this book, is actually so many in the menopause space, many doctors, and are trying to encourage us to get away from using the phrase hormone replacement therapy and instead use menopause hormone therapy or just simply hormone therapy. And the reason is really cool if you're a feminist, and that is that HRT, hormone replacement therapy, medicalizes menopause. In a way, it's like, oh, your estrogen is down and so it needs to be replaced. But actually what we're doing in menopause, if you're taking hormone therapy right now, you're just giving yourself a little bit of a supplement of estrogen and progesterone if you have a uterus. It's not like you're trying to get to levels that you had when you were in, before menopause. And so using the appropriate language like that is actually really helpful, because it just kind of, it normalizes the fact that we're all going to go through menopause and there's a treatment that can be helpful for some. And it reminds us that words matter, like hormone replacement therapy takes us back to the old WHI days, which did a lot of damage around that treatment, the Women's Health Initiative. And frankly, like the reporting around it really scared an entire generation of women out of using hormone therapy. And now we're trying to get away from that and say, look, for some people, it's actually really helpful. And a big shocker is that if you ever took the birth control pill, you are actually getting like way more estrogen than you get in hormone therapy in menopause. And so I think that's super fascinating as well, because a lot of my friends are like, oh, I don't want to take hormones. Like, I want to go through it naturally. And it's like, well, if you ever took the birth control pill, you got a way higher dose of estrogen in that than you will in hormone therapy. And so, yeah, so I'm on a bit of a mission to say, I think it's great that you're talking about it, Maureen, because it's like more people need to know that that was a game changer for you. And to be able to then ask, like, is it right for me? I think getting back to why it's so amazing that we're having these conversations so openly and honestly is it just gives you, it helps you feel empowered to say, you know what, like, my friend Maureen is taking hormone therapy and it's really been a game changer for her. Can we talk about whether or not this is right for me? I'm open to it. Talk me through the research. There's a lot of claims that get thrown around that frankly, when I touch into the research, I'm like, like maybe it helps. It's going to help with heart health, but actually a lot of preventive cardiologists are like, we don't have the evidence. So like right now we have certain indications for hormone therapy, and like, let's talk about those from an evidence-based place.
So you mentioned the phrase words matter, which I've heard you say a lot in the course of writing this book. And early in the process of your research, you learned something gross and shocking, which is that a lot of our body parts are named after old white men. And I want you to just take it from there.
Yes. I think what really kept me so happy in the writing cave with this massive project of writing a 700-page book on women's health is the fact that I was shocked left and right. Like every time I talked to a new crop of researchers and women's health experts, I was like, how do I not know this? And I have dedicated the last 20 years of my life focused on women's health issues. And this is revelatory to me. And so I spoke to a handful of anatomists, largely female, who are on a mission to have us collectively start using anatomical terms that are what are called toponyms. So versus eponyms. So a little background on this. Many of our body parts are named after the typically men who laid claim to them. So fallopian tubes is a prime example of this. We call them the fallopian tubes because hundreds of years ago, this man, Giorgio Fallopio, claimed to have found them.
You can't make this shit up.
You cannot make it up. And so they became the fallopian tubes. And while you can still call them the fallopian tubes, this group of anatomists are saying, actually, they're uterine tubes. And the eponym is fallopian tube because it's named after the man. And the toponym is uterine tube because it's like where they're placed in the body. These are tubes that come from the uterus, right? And so I was really blown away by that. There's an anatomist I interviewed. She's based in Australia and she's written papers on this. And she says, we have to get away from eponyms because they're basically based on the pale, male, and stale. People who basically like an explorer coming through our body, laying claim to different parts, And so I think that really when you think about it like that, you're like, oh, wow, that's actually fairly serious. And so, yeah, I call them my uterine tubes now. And I think, another thing that I'm just being reminded of is, and a big aha, is we as women collectively, and we teach our young boys and girls that like down there is for girls, it's a vagina. It's actually not a vagina. What we're referring to, it's your vulva, right? The vagina is a canal that goes from your vulva up into the interior of your body. It's an internal structure. And so let's call it the vulva because that's what it is.
Let's right now,
just
forever,
call it vulva.
from here on out, we will be calling it the vulva.
It is just so funny, though, the way that the language you're putting it in really does make it feel, like Jess said in the beginning of this conversation, like your bestie. Like, even though it's so technical and there's so much science to it, the way that you present it in the book really felt like I was having like a session with my girls. Like, I was like going through those pages, like, oh my God, can you believe it? Oh my God. Like, there was so many SheWhat moments in this book, but I also felt really not scared of it and not like it was over my head. So I just think it is long overdue, this tome that you've put together. And I can't wait to get more into it. And like you said, I feel like it's something everyone should read, not just women, but men. So what are you hoping that men will learn as you got into this journey along the way?
Yeah. I think it became clear that if men would not necessarily, this isn't a book that you're going to sit down and cozy up with a cup of tea or hand to your husband and say, here, read this and then let's talk. It's 700 pages. However, what my hope is that, so to get personal, I have dense breasts. Like a lot of women, I have very dense breast tissue. And most of the time when I get a mammogram, I have to have a follow-up sonogram because they find they suspect a cyst or they see something that needs further follow-up. And it freaks me out every time. Even though I'm a health journalist, it's really terrifying. And so after Brian read the breast health chapter, he said to me, I just feel like I have more of information that can help, that will help me help support you when you're going through these follow-up tests or things like that. So I think that's my hope, is that men, if a woman has this on her bookshelf, she'll be able to say, gosh, like my sister was just diagnosed with an autoimmune disease and I really want to talk to you about it. Like, can you read this section of this book or this chapter on immune health and women, so that we can talk from a place that's going to help support our loved ones, support each other, etc.
You actually said something to me the other day that I tried out over the weekend. You said that we should start working on modeling consent with our children and especially our boys. And so I went up to my 14-year-old on Friday and I said, "Hey, bud, can I have a hug?" And he was like, I said, Meghan Rabbitt said I had to say it like that. How'd I do? And he was like, oh, in that case, bring it in, Mom. But I love this. And I have thought so much about modeling consent because I just sent my firstborn off to college. And I want him to understand consent in the deepest part of his guts and not just like in his brain, but in his heart and his body. And I think that's another thing that maybe through the process of this book, you were thinking about or tackling.
Yeah, that was in the puberty chapter, which I'm really proud of, because I think a lot of times as women, we think like, oh, I've been through it. Maybe you're going to try to support your sons, your daughters through the process. Obviously, you're going to try to support them through the process. But I think it can be really tempting to think like, oh, I know what I have to know about puberty because I went through it myself. And puberty has changed a lot since we went through it. And I think the more we can educate ourselves about what it's like now, the better we can support our young ones through it. And that was a big thing. We talk a lot about consent, but this puberty expert said, look, model it in a way where you, with your partner, you might say, you might have a conversation before and just be like, look, I'm going to be like pretty over the top and ask if I can kiss you or ask if I can hug you, just so that in front of our little ones, like that becomes sort of a norm. And yeah, I thought that was a cool tip that I try to do myself in front of my nieces, who definitely like, they do the one eyebrow raise thing. Like, this is a little strange, but I think it's those lessons that kind of seep in over time. Yeah, it becomes this new way of being that's helpful.
Yeah.
I love that. And, I'm a mama boys too. And I feel like one of the most powerful parts of this book, when you talk about the puberty chapter, first of all, I wish I had read it when I was in puberty. Second of all, I wish I read it before my boys went through puberty, because in this space that we're in right now, where everyone is so like one or the other, and we're so separate on so many issues, one of the first things you say in the puberty chapter is that women and men are more alike than you think. And I was like, huh. And then when I read it and I was looking at it, I was like, God, if we could instill that at a younger age and have us all know that we're literally all in this together. We know that, but we forget it. And we think we're separate from each other, us against them, or it's a women's issue or a men's issue. But biologically, when you look at it, the development of a baby from the get-go, there's very few things that are a little different.
But we also, Maureen, that's how they teach it.
I know.
In whatever it is, 4th or 5th grade, they bring the girls in here to learn with the gym teacher, and the boys go in there, and that's how they
that's
tell
what I'm
it to
saying.
them.
Like,
yeah, no, I'm agreeing.
It's
Like,
crazy.
it's crazy.
And in my case, they didn't teach us anything. They brought the girls in one room and gave us a brown bag with a maxi pad in it. This was my honest education. I mean, Jess, I think you know the story, Meghan, you're about to die. And this is so TMI, my husband's going to kill me. But when I got pregnant, I still thought a man and a woman had to have an orgasm at the same time to get pregnant.
Well, I'll tell you a funny story as well. As a fellow Catholic girl who got the birds and the bees talk, that was interesting. I thought there was this magnetic force that if you were naked near a man, it was like zoop, and it was just suddenly a penis was inside of you.
Yep, just as wrong.
So I love that, because that's the thing. It's so this book is dedicated to my nieces. And, I wrote the puberty chapter as a love letter to my sister, really, who's helping her young girls navigate this process, which has changed so much since my sister and I went through it. And a lot of the puberty experts did say, look, even if you have boys, my sister has girls, but even if you have boys, don't you want to raise the boy who understands what his peers are going through? And so that he's the one on the playground who tosses the sweatshirt to the girl who's who just started bleeding, or who just understands what's going on, Just similarly, don't you want your girls to know that if a boy pops a boner in class, don't laugh, it happens. Yeah. And so,
and I love that you said it's a baseline, because it really is, because when you say sex, talking to them about sex, it's not just the intercourse part. And so totally. I love that this was the first chapter, and that you really did set that baseline, even for me as someone who's approaching 50 years old, to learn about. And it was awesome. And I think parents can learn about it, kids can learn about it. And God, if Catholic schools could just read a little bit, it would be great.
Yeah.
During your interviews, first of all, your experts are all women. Is that right?
Correct. So I felt really passionate about that. So I only interviewed female experts for this book,
which I think is so important.
Super cool.
More than 130 you will find their voices and their expertise throughout the book.
So these are some of the foremost experts in the world in their fields. What were some of the most hopeful, and I know we already kind of touched on menopause being it's so awesome that it's having this very open, honest moment. But what were some of the parts that maybe had you more concerned or freaked you out a little bit about where we are right now with that particular issue?
No real freak out, but I think a theme throughout reporting this book is we are still behind. We have made progress. Thank God. We are starting to study women. We are starting to understand that women are not small men. We are not, we are not just our symptoms aren't abnormal to the male norm. We're finally talking about that across the board. And that said, there is still not as many research dollars going into women's health issues. And as such, we are way behind on conditions that disproportionately impact women. So autoimmune disease is a huge one. We disproportionately suffer from autoimmunity, and we don't actually know why. Conditions like endometriosis, we should be so much further ahead in our understanding of why it happens and treatments for it and diagnostic tools, and we are just not there. And so what that means is that so many women who have been suffering for years, their doctors genuinely wish they could answer why this is happening to you, and they can't. Not for want of not wanting to, but because we haven't collectively tried to get the answer, And so that left me really just like truly bummed out. And it's just like we're gonna need more time and more of us talking about it, demanding answers, and becoming our own best advocates. And then if we feel inspired, advocating for all of it, writing to your representative saying these topics matter to me, and when are you going to put more focus on them?
Yeah.
You mentioned being your own advocate. So this was a big journey for you, this book being your first book. And then it got you to a point where you made a health decision for yourself. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I am so glad you asked, because I feel like a really big open book about my own health journey, coming to the decision to have a hysterectomy, which is a really common surgery among women.
That's scary. It sounds like such a big, scary thing,
I mean, and I think as women, we identify with our wombs. It's like what makes us women, right? It's like, and even if it's not a womb, like I don't have children, so I've never carried a baby, but it's like the seat of creativity. And it's like, it's really big. It's a really big surgery and even a consideration to think about. And so, yeah, I ignored pretty bad symptoms for many, many years, despite being a health journalist, despite thinking like, they probably shouldn't be bleeding this much, but I guess I just have heavy periods, or I chalked it up to like, I'm probably in perimenopause. Periods can get really heavy in the menopause transition, so maybe that's that. And I just didn't talk about it. I just sort of was like, would dread the 5 to 6 days of my monthly hemorrhaging, as I would call it, and just move on. But then my hair started shedding. I was very anemic because of the heavy bleeding. And I finally brought it up to my gynecologist and said, I feel like something's going on. Like, is this just menopause? Like, do we need to have that conversation? And she felt a few lumps, basically, and was like, let's get a vaginal ultrasound. And sure enough, I had that vaginal ultrasound, and my uterus was filled with fibroids. Pretty much every type you can have, every place they can be. Too many to count, actually, like dozens. And that was what was causing my symptoms. And still, I mean, I cried. I was like, gosh, you sort of feel like your body has failed you. It's interesting when you're
like a betrayal.
I think anyone who's dealt with any kind of health condition is just like, what the heck, body? Like it's a betrayal. That's a great way to put it. And then I think what happens is we just like double down and say like, I can power through. As women, we get really, really good at, bucking up, buttercup, like
Putting on our big girl pants.
So true.
Yeah.
put on your big girl pants, don't complain, don't be a whiny hiney, and just keep going. And yeah, and finally I saw a few different doctors, and frankly did the reporting on this book and realized I don't think I should try to muscle my way through this until, to get through menopause, at which point fibroids tend to shrink because estrogen goes down. And so I did make the decision at the very end. It was sort of poetic, actually. At the very end of 3 years of working on this book, I scheduled the surgery and I had a hysterectomy. And
Wow.
yeah, and it was the right decision for me. I'm by no means saying like, oh, everybody should do it. It's just, I think when and I needed to go through the process of understanding all the factors that go into making that decision, so that I felt confident in my decision to do it, to go through with it. And I think that's my big, that really is where health advocacy starts, right? Like it's advocating to yourself first. It's like, okay, what information do I need? How can I educate myself so that I feel like I'm making the right decision? And then let me gut check that with the experts,
I count myself among the lucky ones who got to see a picture of that uterus after your
Wow.
Okay, yes, I do have to admit that I was very, I mean, like I said, like I really want a sweatshirt that says, ask me about my hysterectomy because I would really love to normalize this. So because it's laparoscopic, there was a little camera right above my belly button. And so my surgeon got to take a look at all of my internal organs, which he literally, like when I woke up from surgery, I was like already asking him all these like medical questions. And he had like, you know, he's looking at me like a little strange. He knows I'm a health journalist, but I was like, tell me all the things, show me all the things. And our post-op appointment, he spent like, I'd say an hour going through all, like, this is your liver, this is your, you know, well, all the things. But I did send Jess a picture of my lumpy uterus. I think it changed her forever. I'm sorry, Jess. Sorry, not sorry.
It's pre Meghan's uterus and post Meghan's uterus in my life. That's the dividing line.
Yeah. As a woman, you sort of look at this thing and you're like, gosh, that's what was causing all these issues. Like, good riddance, man. You know, and I have done a lot of work since in terms of, I think for anyone listening or who has gone through something similar, hysterectomy in particular can be really tricky in that, like, gosh, I don't have my womb. Like, where is that seat of power? Like, does it make me any less a woman? And I just, no, I think there's a lot of, you know, like there's a lot of energy in there that you still have that space in you, you know? And also I have interviewed actually a couple Capitol Health doctors who were so like, interesting and funny about like patients will ask them like, so are my organs all just like floating around in there? Like, and it's like, your uterus is actually like fairly small, you know, like they're like, no, like everything just kind of settles in, you know. But I think that's another reason why there's the anatomy chapter in my book, so that you can understand like, okay, so I'm having this hysterectomy. These are the body parts my doctor is talking about removing. Like, let me acquaint myself with where they are in the body and what they look like, so that we just have a little more agency to say, oh, okay, I know what you're talking about now.
You know, a part of this that we haven't talked about yet, and a part that's sort of another metaphor for life in you producing this book, is the mental health part, and just how you navigated such a huge undertaking and stayed within yourself and found time for yourself and managed all the feelings and emotions you were having. Like, I think it's worth mentioning, you know, how you did that.
Did I though, Jess? I mean, Jess is one of my best friends. And so I called her like throughout this process in like a puddle, you know, in just an absolute, like, I was on the struggle bus at a number of times. And I think it's what happens when you do something you really care about. You know, when I was trying to like shepherd this book through the process, and I was the one creating it at the same time, and I was just trying to you know, really held myself to such a high standard to make sure I was bringing women evidence-based information that was fact-checked and rigorously reported. And so that was a lot of pressure. And it's interesting. There is a chapter in the book on mental health and emotional health. And there's a physician I interviewed who talks a lot about anxiety and actually how to use anxiety as how to harness your anxiety to help you remember that you're feeling anxious, probably because you really care about what you're anxious about. And I thought that was such a cool reframe that I did try to remind myself throughout this process. It was, I'm anxious, I'm stressed because I care about this thing. And what a gift to be able to be focused on work that I care about so deeply.
Oh my God, I love that. I think that really like helps put anxiety in a new perspective, because like even the things that we get just in our heads about on the day-to-day, it's because you care about it, you know? And when you feel your heart rate increasing and you start to feel a little like out of control and worried, that's usually because you're invested in something. And so I think it really shows in every page of this book that you cared about it. And I really think, I love that you told your story about your hysterectomy and that, you know, you're walking the walk. Like you wrote it, you're encouraging us. And I think that you really hit the nail on the head when you're helping us to love living in our bodies. And it's a big undertaking, you know. We just take for granted this magnificent thing that we have to deal with, and we don't know all the parts, and it's complicated. But I really think that every page of this book, I learned something, and I feel like it is empowering. So thank you for writing it.
Well, thanks. And I feel like you're right in that it is hard. Like, we're in these bodies, which are miraculous, and oftentimes they break down, right? They don't show us the same love we always show it. And frankly, we don't always show our bodies so much love because we take them for granted. And I think it is such a practice. We tend to always be like producing, it's like, what can I get done? How much can I fit in? Who can I have to be a great friend, a great partner, a great parent, and it's just sort of like, oh my gosh, there's so much going out of us all the time that for me anyway, I need to make it a practice to actually close my eyes, take a deep breath, and climb into my body, which sounds crazy. And it actually made my therapist laugh out loud at me, and which I was like, why are you laughing so hard? But to be embodied, we have to climb in there and connect. And I don't think I'm alone in finding that sort of challenging to do in this culture of race to get everywhere and do everything and be all the things. And I think that feeling, that embodiment is crucial for our health. And it's certainly crucial when it comes to listening to symptoms that may come up and then talking about them in a way that will get the care that we need and deserve.
I know that Maureen's going to have a question to close us out, but I have to mention or have you touch on the cow clitoris. What's up with it?
Okay, so again, in the anatomy chapter, but also in the chapter on sexual health. So how's this for a shocker? Up until very recently, within years, our research on the clitoris, the only female or the only organ in any human with the sole purpose of pleasure, it's all been based on cows. We thought we knew what the female clitoris was based on dissection in cows. And so this amazing physician, Dr. Maria Yoloko, and a research partner of hers said, no, we need to dissect a female clitoris, and found out that there are double the amount of nerve endings we originally thought. And also that's a big part of the sexual health chapter because we need to get to know our clitoris a lot more and with a lot more accuracy. So the cow clitoris, Jess, thanks for that. Bringing that up.
So many good parts, everybody, including the cow clitoris.
Yes.
But Meg, we do like to ask everyone that we talk to, and I'm sure you've got a lot of good advice along the way, but is there anything that sticks with you, something that someone told you, maybe in the process of writing this book, or maybe just in your life as a journalist, that you can share with our audience that keeps you going? Maybe it's a mantra or motto or just a piece of advice.
It's something I've just recently started to learn, but I think it relates to this process of writing the book, but also just what I've learned at 46 is the importance for us, especially as women, to be gentle with ourselves. We want to do all the things. I want this book to change lives and to really make an impact. And at some point you need to do what you can and then say, okay, I did what I can, and now I'm human, and I'm going to be gentle with myself. A little known fact about me, in addition to me being on the Rat Task Force, starting my career, is that throughout my childhood, I did very competitive Irish step dancing. So my mom was born in Ireland, got us into Irish dancing, and my sister and I mean, we traveled to Ireland 8 times to compete in the World Championships.
Wow.
And so it was really intense. As anyone who does any kind of sport or anything really knows, you practice so hard and then you have these competitions and they're big. And with Irish dancing, it's a little bit like ice skating in that there's 3 judges in front of you and there's only so much you can control. And my dad, he would often say to me after I got off the dance floor, he's like, you left it all on the dance floor. You did what you could, and now it's out of your hands. And I think certainly with this book, I left it all on the dance floor. I did everything I could to produce the best thing possible.
For sure.
For all of us, it's like you can do what you can do, and then it's sort of out of my hands now, and I think there's a lot of power and beauty in that.
Pencils down.
Pencils down.
Well, Meg, I think you definitely left it all on the dance floor for us, and I hope that everyone picks up a copy of the new book, and I just can't wait to see what you do next. But thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you guys for what you do. It's so we need to do more of this, gather women and have these important conversations because they're so important and feel empowering. Not to use that word too much, but it feels I feel livened up from this conversation. So that's a good thing.
Let's do it.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.